Welcome to another one of our Rover Masterclasses. This month we are talking about Rover BI and practical use cases and best practices for the Rover BI power users. So those that are making those dashboards and those reports that you're sharing. You don't have to be a power user, just any Rover BI user. With us today, myself, Curtis, I know most of you know me, Customer Success Manager here at Zoom Assist. We also have Bill Baker, one of our senior manufacturing consultants, as well as Tyler, one of our implementation specialists, focusing on the business intelligence and AI side. So we will kick it off to Bill to start, but throughout, if there's any questions or if there's anything you guys kind of want to dive a bit deeper into, feel free to unmute, put in chat, just interrupt us.
Yeah, we definitely are going to get pretty technical here, and so just a warning. And this may turn into part one, part two in February. We'll see, but we're going to do our best to try to get you guys information on how to kind of use the various tools that you have. And yeah, without further ado, we'll start with Tyler. Tyler's going to lead us off, then we'll get into some real data set building. Okay.
Awesome. Everybody can see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So yeah, before we get started, I think it's important to take a step back and just think about how data is structured in Rover. So a good way to do that is to look at a file called the FDICT file. And that's just the dictionary file. You can look at that in Rover. You can also pull it into BI. But within Rover, everything is a file, essentially, is a way to think of it. So you got your sales order file. You might have your inventory file, so on and so forth. And within those files, you have fields. And those fields can have your sales order ID, contact, ship via, whatever it may be. So that part, pretty easy to understand. But another part that can be really powerful, especially in Rover BI, is correlatives. And just in case you're not familiar with the term correlative, most of you may be, but all a correlative is basically going to another file to grab some information to bring back into this file. So just a quick example, customer name here, cus name. So if we were to bring that into a data set, what would happen is basically it would say the sales order would say, hey, it would go over to the customer file and say, hey, I have customer code 123. What's the customer name? I'm going to grab that customer name, bring it back for you. So it's just a way to bring in some more information in kind of a pre-built way. And it's not just, simple things like that. There's some pretty powerful correlatives as well. Like, for example, AR balance in the SO data set. So instead of having to create a calculated field or do some sort of power script, which we'll get into later here, you can just call AR balance and you're able to bring in the AR balance for that customer. So I guess the biggest piece of advice there is anytime that you're building a report and you need to, or you think you need to come up with a calculated field, check the correlatives first, because it's very possible there's already a correlative that's been built that just makes your life easier. So with that, we'll hop into bringing in data to Rover BI. So you can bring in files, which we just discussed there. You can also bring in reports. So we'll hop into this report here, so.r13. Some of you may be familiar with that if you're familiar with pulling reports from Rover. And I'm just going to pull up the so.r13 view here. So we can kind of look at it side by side and make that comparison. And I'll actually hop in and edit this data set first. So I guess before that, though, just to give you a quick rundown on kind of how to build a data set. So every data set starts with a data source, and that's just going to be the connection to your ERP, Rover in this case. And then you're going to, we're going to be generally doing web queries. So it's just an API endpoint, which is going to be your URL, and then data set. For the purposes of this class today, it's all going to be data set. And then you have your parameters here, and that's where you can start making some connection between the two. So the routine parameter is going to be, you will have that on every data set or report that you're pulling in. If you're pulling in a report, the routine is get report. If you're pulling in a file, like the SO file, it's get record. And then we're pulling in a report here, so report name, so.r13, right from the system. And then start date, again, right from the system over here. So parameters are really just setting those different criteria or filters that you're using to pull in the data that you're looking for here. So I'll hop over to a file now, a file data set, just to point out a few other things here. So we'll hop into the parts data set. I'll edit it here. And again, I'm going to come back to the parameters here because there's a few more things to point out. So like I had said, you're either doing a get record or a get report for the routine. In this case, we're going to do get record. And then instead of report name, it's file name. So we're doing from the parts file. And then there's this selection parameter. And this is optional, but it can be helpful, especially when you're first building the data set. So you can do selection and then select parts. And to keep things moving fast, you could say sample 100 or whatever number you think makes sense. So when you're kind of re-querying the data set, it's only pulling in 100 at a time. And again, that just kind of helps you to move faster when you're building out these flow steps here. I'll take that off for now. And correlative names. So we talked about correlatives earlier. Correlatives are not going to pull into a data set on their own unless they're called out. So, you know, for our previous example, if I wanted to bring in AR balance, I need to specifically call out AR balance here as a correlative. And one other little thing to keep in mind when you're pulling in correlatives or field names is if you look at the FDICT, it's going to have, instead of full description, it's going to have a period there. But when you're using them in a parameter, you need to have an underscore. So just keep that in mind. To call in more than one, so you can just do a space and put your next correlative. Now, field names are going to pull in, if you don't specify, it's going to pull in all the fields available in that file. So if you only wanted to pull in, a few field names, like you had the field names in mind that you wanted, same as correlative, you just specify the ones that you need to pull in. Okay, just making sure I didn't miss anything here. So a few other things.
Yeah, just one really quick thing to add is the selection that Tyler, we're going to go into that in a little more depth too. And the field names particularly. What is very useful about them is you can be very precise sometimes with what you are grabbing in the select statement. and in the field names as well, because in various ERPs, but Rover in particular, it can have very large files sometimes. So if you really only need 6 fields or 1 field for a report, and then the rest are correlatives, it will make things perform a lot faster if you kind of just limit it to what you're looking for. Or if you're looking for an open sales order report versus all sales orders, that's another way we can use selection to do that. So just adding that point, and we'll definitely hit that in a little more detail in our example today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
So a few more things before I kick it over to Bill here, to set up a data set. So, similar to any API call, you need to send over your key, which you can specify as a secret in the system. And we can show that later as well, but you always need to send that. So that's just important to keep in mind. Pre-request script. Let's see if I can show one here that has something in there. So, okay, well, we'll get into that later as well. But what a pre-request script allows you to do is, a lot of times we use it to filter on dates. So you can kind of have a dynamic filter that maybe looks back 7 or 20 days to Bill's point, so you're not pulling in so much data at once. Pre-request script is a good place to do that. And I think at this point, Bill, unless you feel I missed something, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and just build one as an example, and I'm gonna try to kind of go slow. Please, jump in if you have questions, or if I'm going too fast. And we'll just try to use some different flow steps. Kind of goal today is to kind of just give you a real live example. So here I'm going to create a new data set. Just a real quick side note, this web query data set, this can be used for any ERP that we are using. It could be used for other data sets or sources that you have that have APIs. But this is a Rover masterclass, so we're certainly going to use Rover today. Okay, so I'm going to do, we're going to call this like just an open order report that we're going to build. Okay, and we're going to use this Rover API data source. Most of you in your account is going to have like one Rover data source set up already. And then you'll notice, so far we're getting nothing. We're going to go ahead and add that data set, after the slash in the URL. That should get us a little bit step further. Okay, but we still have no parameters, no headers, so we're still not getting data. So I'm going to go ahead first, and I'm going to just go ahead and add the parameters in for us. Again, most of these are always going to be the same for you. Okay, so now we're still getting 400. It's because we haven't specified the what we're getting yet. So here's the parameters. Again, we're gonna start with the routine, and since we're doing open orders, we're going to be referencing the SO file. So that means we're going to be using get record instead of get report. And then we're going to need to specify the file name, and it's going to be the SO file in this case. And then for selection, we'll start with just a very basic select statement, and we're just going to select SO. And you can, there we go. It's another way to do it, but we're going to add a sample of 50 again, just to kind of see if we can get a small amount here. Okay. So you can see now we're getting 50 records back, and it's in this kind of, items structure. So one of the fundamentals we want to talk about today is the difference between like a field, a row, and an array. Array is basically, it's a big block of items. So in this case, the data is structured so that like each SO it's just a big list of SOs, and you can see the data is pretty extensive here. So one of the things we are going to do is we're going to use the response parser to try to just kind of get this to be, I want each row to be an SO. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the parser here. And it, this is, now it's kind of live querying the data again. I'm going to use a custom script. Okay. And a lot of you have these already in your BI accounts or Rover AI accounts, but you'll notice that this is just kind of a parser script that works for just about every file. And I've just put XX there and I've just saved it. And now I'm just going to replace it with SO since we're referencing the SO file. And you'll notice that, now the data is starting to look the way I want it. It's got a row for each sales order. Okay. So now what we're kind of in is the data exploration step as we're kind of looking at it, seeing what I have. Okay. Interesting. So I see that sales order, I have line items. So again, this is, if you look at partials, okay, right next to it, that's a kind of a field, normal field value, a single value. And then you'll notice line items are an array because a sales order can have multiple lines on it. So you can notice just the difference again when you're looking at it at the data. You can notice the difference between arrays and these, and it's going to be very important because various things can be done depending on whether you're dealing with fields or arrays. As I keep looking, I notice, okay, here we go. I've got statuses. So I've got C for closed in Rover, new for new. So the first thing I think is, okay, I want to make an open order report here. So I probably only want ones that are in status new. So I'm going to kind of flip back here to the selection, and I'm going to say, select SO with status equal to new. And then I'm going to keep that sample 50 here, and then we're going to run it again. Okay. And now we notice that we get 50 records, but all of them are in the status new now. And that's kind of an example of using select. And then I wanted to bring up one other idea too. This is really common, is that we want to use date as a select criteria. So here I'm getting this is from our dev data box. So it's got old orders in, but let's just say I don't want anything, before 2025. So now I'm going to go back to the select, and I'm going to add another parameter and say, and with date, GE means greater than or equal to, LE means less than or equal to, GT greater than, LT less than. And I'm going to use, January 1st, 2025 here. And we're kind of, now we're going to see, okay, now I'm getting a row per SO, and I'm not getting anything older than 2025. So far, so good. Okay. Now I'm looking for like customer name though, right? And I don't see it. I see cust code. I see some other fields. So this is an example of where we might want to refer to correlatives. So I'm going to use also, we have a, we have Rover AI, and you can kind of embed these different AI assistants in the platform to use with Rover AI. And we've built like a PowerScript assistant here that kind of helps us do some of this. So I'm going to say, just ask the AI assistant, can you, tell me what correlatives are available in the SO file. And we're going to give it a second here to think.
And while that's thinking, just one thing to bring up, when you're working with assistants in AI, in BI, it can be helpful you see that little refresh button down there to the right of the chat box. Like when you're asking a new question that has no context or is not relevant to what you asked before, go ahead and hit that refresh. And what that does is just frees up some context for the assistant, and you're probably going to get a better response because of it. So just something to keep in mind.
Cool. And so here, this is just we've given the assistant access to the FDICT file that Tyler showed earlier. So it's kind of a useful tool. Here it's just giving me the names of them. Really easy to use. I'm gonna grab a few of these: custom name, city, state, and I'm gonna show you how to put them in. So I'm just gonna go back to parameters now, and I'm gonna add that correlative names argument, and I'm gonna just quickly paste some of these in. But I'm using the full description one, the custom name, custom city, state, country, and then order amount is a nice one because if you remember, those line items were kind of a messy array. Order amount's a correlative that's already there that just kind of totals up the order amount. There's some other ones too, like open amount, that are very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and just add open amount as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and now see what we're looking at. Okay, so we still have the data is looking the same. I've added in some correlatives. We're going to go see if we can find them. Here we go. So now we have, name, city, country, state, open amount, and order amount there. So we will call that good for the moment. Tyler already went through how to use field names, so I won't hit that again. But just another option if I didn't need anything here except the correlatives and the SO, for example, I could add a field names argument or parameter, and let's say I just wanted the SO ID. Then it's going to just give me the SO ID and those correlatives that I specified. So that's another just tool in the toolbox of kind of restricting and cleaning, keeping the data the way you want it. So I am going to remove that here though, and we're going to move on to flow steps. Okay. So before we go into flow steps, are there any questions around some of the things we've talked about so far that anyone wants to put in the chat? Okay. Okay. All right, we'll keep going, and like I said, we'll share this with everybody. It's going to go on YouTube as well. So, okay, the first flow step I'm going to talk about is remove fields. So, just sometimes it's easier to, you don't need certain fields that are coming back. So I'm just going to go ahead and you can kind of mass do these things. I'm going to remove some of these like ship items and rep items that I don't need, print date, order code. Maybe I don't need stamp or stamp date. So this is just showing you the remove fields flow step, and that's gonna kind of clean things up, tidy it up a little bit more. Maybe in this case, tax code items, I would say we don't really need those for our purposes today. So I'm going to go ahead and also remove some of these tax fields. Okay. All right. So the next flow step that we're going to talk about is actually, it's going to be kind of an advanced one that's, it's in transform, but it's merge duplicates. So merge duplicates is a way I like to think about it as grouping things differently. So let's say an example here, I've got my open SOs, but I kind of want them grouped by customer for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into merge duplicates flow step. And I'm going to say, I just want, I'm going to group things by customer here. So I'm going to pick the customer fields as what I want to represent a single row. And then the remaining fields become treated as arrays by default. Okay. And now what I've got is by customer, I've got, all of their orders basically grouped together. Now this could become very powerful if I'm trying to make an open order report that is grouped by customer and I want to loop through and calculate the total open value per customer, that kind of thing. We're not really going to do that in this case, so I'm just going to, go ahead and delete this flow step, but very powerful, and it's a way to turn things into arrays or group them in the flow steps. So I'm going to back out of that. And the next thing we're going to talk about is in this case, how to go the other way. So let's say we have arrays like these line items, but we actually want this report to be a line item, open order line item report, and not just like an open order report that's just at the SO level. So here we have the line items. We see their arrays. We're going to go ahead and use another flow step that's called normalize. And this is the way we deal with these kind of array fields. I'm going to take that line item and I'm going to pick that as a normalize. Now, a lot of times you'll have fields, other fields that kind of share the same structure, and you'll just include them here and it will just take care of them all in one shot. So now when I go back and I'm looking at the data, now I can see that I'm getting one row now per line item. So this in this case, this is 1, 2, 3. And if I go over here, this is going to be the same sales order 28441. So this is kind of looking the way I want it. All right. Now, the next thing to notice is that these are there's a lot of different fields that are kind of within line items. Okay. So I've got the line number, I've got the part number, and I've got this kind of funky bracket thing. And this is basically in programming terminology, it's a JSON object. Okay. So that doesn't really help me for the data set I'm trying to make. I'd rather see them as individual fields. So here I'm going to kind of use another flow step. And we're going to use something that's called a power script here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this JSON object. And I'm going to go into the advanced flow step power script. And here I'm going to jump back to my my assistant. Pardon me. And I'm going to ask it for some help here. I'm going to say, can you help me with the power script that creates a new column? And we're going to give it a second here to think.
So with that, it's important that you call out the field name when you're asking the assistant to flatten the array or create new columns. You see how he has list item there? That's the name of that field. So again, it's important to include that.
Yeah, if you want to write the first time, 100%. And one important thing in the power scripts, it's a best practice definitely to call out what you're doing. So I'm breaking out fields in line items. Okay. That way, if you go back to this data set 3 months later, or somebody else is working on it, they understand it. And then also you have access to what fields you have available right here. So this is another place where we could have, we could have seen what it was called. We'll notice here that the AI just got it from here, or it even kind of looked for different potentials there. And we're just gonna try to copy and paste this code and see how it did. Okay. All right. So it's also got this. We'll come back to this, but it's got this idea of removing the original nested fields. So we'll come back to that. We'll see how it looks. Okay, it looks like we got a little. Oh, okay. We're using a return here. Let's see. We probably need to update the AI a little bit. Try to see if we can get this corrected.
This is a great example, though, of running into an error and just some iteration with the assistant, because at the end of the day, it's still faster than writing 50, 60 lines of JavaScript. So
it's actually good to bump into a little bit of a friction here. And again, we kind of continue, we can make this assistant more efficient, but this is just an example. So it's we're kind of going to go back to it, and we're going to jump back to that script, and we're going to try this now with the updated. Okay, now it's looking better. Let's see, actually, I'm still having an issue here.
And this could be a good example, Bill, of hitting refresh to clear your context, and trying again. I mean, sometimes that can make a difference.
Okay, let's give that a whirl if we're. Now let's try this. Let's go back to. I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. Okay. And to Tyler's point, I was working before with in a different area, so maybe it was thinking I was in that context. So
Yep.
if not,
Yeah,
we have. Go ahead. Yep.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, best practice there, honestly, is probably to hit refresh anytime you're working on a new subject. Good habit to get into, seems like.
Let's try this. Okay. If not, we do have the output from earlier that we can use, so we won't hold up everybody on this. But let's give this a whirl. Okay. And it looks like we've got the fields. Still, it looks like it's struggling a little bit. Let's see if we can. We're going to go ahead and give it the actual field here. Try this guy here, the Copilot. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, apologies for that, but there we go. We've got now we can see we've got different, the finished good logs, the prices, the descriptions. So okay, now we're kind of cooking. All right, so that was the example of kind of the back and forth you might have sometimes working with AI assistant, but Tyler mentioned it's very useful for kind of doing this without code. You can get into the JavaScript, but frankly, probably my first 6 months using this, I wrote a lot, but in the last probably 6 months, I've wrote almost nothing. I'm using AI a lot. So here, just going back, we're going to go ahead back to our process. We're going to notice that we've got the original line items there. Now we've got the lines into part numbers, order quantities, open quantities per line. We still have some schedule items that we could go and break down further. We could do that with another PowerScript step. And then what I wanted to just jump into here is formatting. So once we get into dashboards and visuals, which we will get into in a bit, formatting of fields can be very important here. So there is a flow step, okay, and it's going to be in the transform called field settings. And we're going to want to use this to basically make sure that our data is in the right format. So we've got a date. We want to make sure it's read as a date. We've got an amount. We want to make sure that it's read as a number. And we've got all kinds of things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you just what this looks like. And I highly recommend this if you're going to end up building visuals down the road, is just add a field settings flow step somewhere in your data set to address this. So nothing really noticeable in the data there, but it is going to come into play later when we build visuals. Okay. So then last thing, we've already talked about remove fields, but you could have another remove field step here. Maybe after you've exploded those line items, you say, hey, I don't really need that messy original line items object anymore. So I'm going to remove that, and then it's gone. And now I just have the data that I'm looking for. Okay. And then let's see, last flow step that I definitely wanted to cover today is we can add fields. So a lot of these are kind of self-explanatory: calculated field, concatenate, counter. But one of the most powerful ones is fields from another data set. So, we can sometimes use correlatives, but other times, maybe I've got the information in another data set in BI, and I want to go get it. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the parts data set here. And I need to tell it what to connect to the parts data set so I've got this line part number from the open sales order data set, and I'm connecting to the parts data set. So I have to find the right field here. So I'm going to connect it to part number here. And you'll notice that it kind of, and by default, it's going to use the first value, or you can bring back an array sometimes. But now I have all the fields that are part fields available, for me to bring into this open order data set. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab a description just for our purposes. And I think a best practice here is to add a prefix. And since I'm referencing parts, I like to kind of call out at least part in the prefix. And I'm going to basically, hit done here. And again, we're going to go back to our data, and we're going to look, and we'll notice now we have the part full description coming in, and now I can move it around, reorder it, etc. So a couple other cool things is, I like to, one thing you can do is show field aliases. So these are the code versions of what the field is, and that's how we're going to reference it in PowerScripts. But we also have this option to change the label, so that kind of nasty, maybe I just want on this report or data set that I'm building, I just want to call it the description. I can go ahead and give it a name or a label that's different than that kind of technical alias. Okay. And then let's see, last but not least, I think just if you're looking for a column, sometimes data sets can get pretty big. So you can just type in here, and you can click this little icon, and it's going to take you to wherever in the data set that is and highlight it for you. Okay. So those are some, tricks of the trade here. I'm going to say, like, at this point, the data is looking good. What's the next step? So the next step actually is we're gonna go ahead and remove that sample, because now we're happy with the way it looks. And now we're going to save again, and we're going to add a job to it. So a job is a very important way to automate how often this data is refreshed. There are options to keep it up to the minute or live with APIs, but the most common use is we're using jobs, and you can put it on a schedule. So I'm going to go ahead. First thing I'm going to do is save this job. I'm going to see how it runs. Okay, and you can see that one ran pretty quick. It had 306 records, and now we go to the data. Now the data is there. So our exploration's done. We've got the data set that we want, and we've got it kind of automated as far as refresh. Last topic before I'm going to kick it back to Tyler for dashboards is, in every data set you have settings here. And one thing I like to do is enable a timestamp, and that is going to basically give you a timestamp of when that record came into BI. It becomes useful for a variety of reasons. And then update mode. So, sometimes files can be enormous that we're dealing with if we're dealing with ERPs. So we have options here whether we want to replace the whole thing every time we run it, which means, we're going to use that typically for smaller things like open order reports or, open AR, etc. But sometimes, we want to just kind of upsert or append, which means we're gonna add new records, but we're gonna update existing ones. But we're only gonna get, when we go and reference the selection, we're gonna only get things that are new or that have changed, and then update them in this. So when you do upsert, you need to pick an ID that you're gonna upsert on, and typically that's gonna really be whatever whatever each row of data represents. So in this case, we have SO as an option, but we'd have to make an SO line column to really use as a key here. And then we would use SO line as the ID field if we're going to upsert this. So yeah, that would be kind of the last thing to talk about with that. And I think with that, we can talk about, now that we have data. Thank you for bearing with us there. But now it's like, what do we do with it? How do we turn this into visuals? How do we turn this into something that users, our business users, can use? So with that, I'll kick it to Tyler.
Yeah. All right. So just wanted to show a few things on building dashboards. And a good place to start for that is right inside the data set. So you'll see there's this visuals option here. So if I click on that, I already have some made up here. But the advantage to building a visual, and all a visual is a bar chart or just a way to view this data. The advantage to building them on the data set is if you go to then use this visual in a dashboard, it's already built for you. So, maybe you're making 3 versions of a sales dashboard. You can, excuse me, use that visual in each of those 3 versions. You don't have to rebuild it each time. So just a nice thing to keep in mind there. And a really quick way to build visuals is with this magic visual. So I'm going to hop into that and just show you an example here. So I'm going to say create a map of sales by state, and we'll see what happens here. The other visuals that I created that are already in there were also created with Magic Visual. All right, and there we go. So, I mean, again, you can really start to see the power of using Magic Visual to get you where you need to be and build out these dashboards a lot quicker, or even come up with visuals that you may not have come up with or known how to build on your own. And it's really easy to iterate on this. So, let's say I don't want this by state. So actually, you can just iterate on that within the chat here. And we'll see what it comes up with here. And there we go. So same data, just visualized differently. And we won't get into these tabs too much today. I think that would make more sense to say for a later time, but you can kind of see what the Magic Visual is doing too. So, I could go into this transform here and let's see if I could find an example. There we go. So, I can see it's grouping by cust name and it's summing the order amount. So, that gives you an opportunity to, let's say you built a magic visual, it's not quite what you're looking for. Well, you can go into the transform here, kind of figure out what it's doing, and then query against this to, get to the point you want to be. And I'll show you just a couple other examples here that I built earlier. I mean, they're nothing crazy, but it just, again, very common things that you're going to run into. Top 10 customers. Well, you can build in Magic Visual in under 60 seconds. So we'll hop over to an actual dashboard now, and dashboards are going to be in the Reports tab. So we'll hop into this one here, and I can kind of show you what I mean with being able to add in those visuals now. So, okay, I'm in the dashboard. I can hit Edit Report. And to go through a few things here, so you need to add the data set that you're pulling this data from. So you can do that here in datasets. And another really common thing to do is add a data set multiple times with different views. So like, let's say you're building a year to date and then a month to date. Well, you can add this data set and then filter by date, and then I'm just going to do January is not a great example for month to date and year to date, but you can see you can use these keywords. So if you can't remember what these keywords are, you can just click right there and it'll show you the keywords that are available to you to dynamically filter those dates. So if I were to just do year begin, and I mean, we'll put year end on there. Close that out. It's only going to show records from 2026. So then we could use that as our year to date, and then we would just add that data set again. And, maybe we could call this one MTD. And there you go. We, once we have added the date filter to that, so again, not a great example doing this in January, but month begin, there we go. That's a dynamic month to date view of that data set. So something to keep in mind there. And then to add visuals that we've already created, you can add them right here. Magic Visual, you'll see, is still available, but you can also do save visuals. So, I could just throw all 3 of these in there, and there you go. So kind of a 30,000 foot view of dashboards, but I think the one that I would really recommend getting in there and playing around with is, Magic Visuals. They can be really powerful to just speed up building dashboards. I mean, we all know dashboards can be kind of finicky and can take hours to build sometimes, depending on what you're doing. So to be able to do that in 30 minutes to an hour instead is pretty powerful stuff. Makes you happy, makes who you're building the dashboard happy. So yeah, Bill, anything I missed there? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Totally. No, I think that's a good cover. I just want to kind of hit the point. We're just trying to show you how we do it. And frankly, you notice we're using a lot of AI because it has greatly reduced the time it takes to really turn things into this result from pretty raw and gnarly multi-value data. Now, the only other thing I want to bring up is on the elements part. I mean, you can definitely, there's a way to create all these kinds of charts, tables manually as well. We use the AI version and the Magic Visual because it's just a way to shortcut it. Definitely, I don't think anything to add. Just I think to anybody that's joining or seeing this after, if you email us, we're happy to share with you our assistant that we use for developing the power scripts or response parser. That's only going to get better over time as we kind of refine it, and yeah, we can keep working with you and help kind of showing you, getting you to this point, because we know it's a little bit of a leap for some at this point, but we just wanted to really, the whole point of this was to kind of show you what we do on our end to be the most efficient. So that's all I have, Tyler. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I guess to add just a little more to that too, it almost feels like maybe a separate masterclass on dashboards would make sense because, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that you can do without AI as well, and we certainly use those tools as well. I think the really powerful thing is finding that balance between, okay, what do I do and what do I delegate to Magic Visuals or whatever it may be. And when you can kind of find that balance, it's pretty fun, the workflow you can get into and just how efficient you can be. So
yeah. So looking for ideas there. If you guys like to see masterclass on dashboards, like I said, that could be part 2 here. We also thought about an idea of like maybe some customers that have used these, turn them into kind of real live examples on their shop floors. Maybe kind of showcasing somebody there. So if anybody wants to do that, totally open there. So, any questions from anybody before we kind of wrap up today?
I'm going to be the but wait, there's more guy here. So feel free to reach out to me as well with any questions that you have. I mean, we want you guys to be able to utilize these tools. They're great tools, and happy to help with that. So, I'll drop my email in the chat for those that don't have it.
All right. Well, thank you those that joined, and we appreciate you. And like I said, we're here for you guys and girls, and whatever you need. We just kind of want to help make you more successful with our Rover BI and AI. Okay. Thank you.